Today I'm walking you through the full process of soaking and sprouting long grain brown basmati rice at home, why organic rice matters, what sprouting actually does, and how homemade compares to store-bought sprouted rice. I always start with organic brown rice, especially when soaking or sprouting. Rice is grown in flooded fields, which means it easily absorbs what's in the water, including pesticides and contaminants. When we soak rice, we're intentionally pulling things out of the grain, so starting with organic really matters. Non-organic rice is also more likely to be heat stabilized, which can prevent sprouting altogether. Ideally, rice is rinsed before soaking to remove surface starch, typically for a couple of minutes under the running water. I'll be honest, I forgot that step this time, but that's okay because soaking still does the majority of the work when it comes to activating the grain and reducing anti-nutrients. For the soak, I use plenty of water and let the rice sit for 8 to 12 hours. I used filtered water from my Pro 1 system for the soaking step, since this was the longest water contact. For this big pot of chili I'm pairing my rice with, I'm using 2 cups of rice, 6 cups of water, and 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. For water, you want 3 to 4 times the volume of rice and 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar per cup of rice. After soaking, I drain the rice thoroughly and rinse it at least twice a day. This part is really important. Yes, I learned that the hard way. Rinsing only once a day can actually slow the sprouting process. Frequent rinsing keeps the grain oxygenated, prevents off smells, and helps move the process forward instead of letting it ferment in the wrong direction. For rinsing, I used regular tap water since I don't have a whole house filtration system. That's completely fine because the water contact is very brief and the rice is drained each time. Rice doesn't sprout dramatically like beans. You might see a tiny white dot, a split grain, or simply notice the rice feels softer and smells clean and fresh. Even without a visible sprout tail, the grain is still considered activated. The changes are happening internally. However, I have been sprouting my rice for the past couple of months, and I've never not seen a tiny white dot or tail on the end of each grain. Soaking and sprouting rice helps reduce phytic acid, improves mineral absorption, and makes rice easier to digest. Many people find sprouted or soaked rice feels lighter and less heavy after meals. Sprouting can also increase the availability of B vitamins and calming compounds like GABA, which is one reason sprouted rice has been valued in traditional diets. Store-bought sprouted rice can be convenient, but when you make it at home, you control the quality of the grain, the water, and the process from start to finish. It's also worth mentioning the difference between brown and white rice. White rice is made by removing the bran and the germ, which is where most of the fiber, minerals, and vitamins naturally live. What you're left with is mostly starch. That's why white rice is often enriched later with synthetic vitamins because those nutrients were stripped away during processing. With brown rice, and especially when it's soaked or sprouted, those nutrients stay intact and become more available to the body. Sprouting doesn't add anything artificial, it simply helps unlock what was already there. Once the rice is soaked or lightly sprouted, it cooks differently than dry rice. I use a simple ratio, 1 cup of soaked rice to 1.5 cups of water. I add a decent amount of salt, a couple of tablespoons, and a few tablespoons of butter directly to the pot. The butter coats the grains and gives the rice a really fluffy, rich texture. Bring it to a gentle boil, cover, reduce the heat, and simmer until the water is absorbed. Then turn the heat off and let the rice steam for 5 to 10 minutes before fluffing. The result is nourishing, fluffy rice that's easier to digest and deeply satisfying. The flavor of this rice honestly can't be compared to store-bought. It's just on another level. I love serving it with chili or stew this time of year, and my sweet peppered beef chili over this rice is one of our go-tos. That recipe will be in my new cookbook I'm hoping to release later this year. If you have any questions about sprouted rice, please leave it in the comments and I will be sure to answer. Rice is one of the most affordable, accessible starches in the world, and when it's prepared properly, it can be a really nourishing part of a real food diet.